FloodGate family, thanks for joining us at this episode of Leadership Live. And we are absolutely ecstatic to have Zach Fleming with Sanara MedTech, the CEO. Zach, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be part of this great platform you guys have created.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it only is available because of guys like you. And so I've been lucky enough to know you over the years, but I'm sure there's a lot of people on listening right now who don't know you. So give us a little background about you and, of course, all the great things happening in Sanara.
Sure. Happy to. Thanks for asking. So I go back a long way to childhood. Grew up in Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, where Indiana University is. And grew up there, ended up going to college there, was a track athlete at Indiana. Won the Big Ten a couple times, 1997, 1998, Big Ten champ shot putter, if you can believe it. So
wow,
little competitive. I'm a little competitive. And then matriculated to Indianapolis and worked for a market research company. Did that for quite a few years right out of school. Learned a lot about the business of marketing and then how to present to large groups. So kind of you'll start to see a theme. Mm-hmm. And then moved on into medical, just early 2000s, got into a company called HealthPoint, which is based here in Fort Worth, Texas. And we were a small company selling to wound care. And at the time, that was a sort of a new industry. And we had some really innovative products, really enjoyed that. Had probably one of the best teams that I've ever seen created in the healthcare space. Great place for a young guy to learn. And so I learned a lot there. Moved on as the acquisition occurred in about 2012 with Smith & Nephew, worked there for several years, and then moved on to Sanara in 2017. I've got a family of, there's 5 of us, so I've got 3 kids. I've got a girl that's a freshman in college. She's at A&M, and then I've got 2 younger kids, a junior, soon to be a senior at Southlake High School in Texas, and then a junior son named Bo. So Bo, Avery, Ella are their names, and my wife, Becky. And then we've got 2 dogs, live in Southlake, Texas.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining out. You've been in, this medical world since 2000. You've dealt with some incredible leaders. I knew some of the ones at HealthPoint and at Smith & Nephew and where you are now. I'm curious what you find it takes to really be a good leader in this unique med device space we're in.
I think we've all worked for good leaders, and I think observation is a real key. You need to observe what works as you come through your career, and you beg, borrow, and steal those things, and you add them to your quiver, to your arsenal as a leader. So you try to incorporate those into how you lead. I think that's number one. And then within that, I think it's really important about leadership to understand everybody's walk in their shoes, understand their perspective, try to take that on and help them, through those different problems. And then I think challenge people. You want to challenge people. You want to give them opportunities to grow. You want to have them be challenged. Failure is fine. Failure is a great way to learn. So you want to give them opportunities to fail, but have a soft landing spot. And I think those are really important parts of my journey is I had to fail. I had to learn. Mm-hmm. Redirect my course. And I think those are opportunities as you grow to find your best self and your best work self. And I think leaders are not born. I think there are traits that help you lead, but they're really built through experience and through observation.
Yeah, that's good. And what I hear, you've got to be willing to put yourself out there, right? Because you're going to be willing to fail, willing to put yourself out, put yourself in those challenging situations, be around.
That's exactly right.
Because if you don't get those new experiences, you're not going to put, I think you said, the arrows in the quiver, right? You're not going to have that.
That's right. I think competitiveness always helps. I think, you oftentimes see a lot of folks with backgrounds like mine where they started in sports or some sort of a competitive background, or they're very apt to be part of some sort of previous leadership, maybe their sorority, their fraternity, those types of things. And I think all those experiences start to build out what it takes to be a leader because, empathy is a big part. Humility is a big part. I think you have to have gratitude, hunger, that all that is part of kind of how they're made. But I do believe leadership is built, and that's through those experiences.
That's a great suggestion. Guys, I'm going to be asking a few questions here to Zach, but I know you're going to have some questions if you're listening here. All you have to do is comment. Just put a comment right there and watching below. We're going to take the last 5-10 minutes, pull in some of your questions. So please take a moment, comment below whatever questions or comments you have for Zach. We'll bring those in there. So make sure you bring that in. Now, you mentioned failing, a few times just now and learning through failure. So what's a couple of the quote unquote lessons that, you've learned the hard way that you can share so someone doesn't fall into your mistakes?
Yeah, I think it goes in each different space that you go in. I mean, one of the things I learned is you got to figure out how to get down the funnel. In business, or for that matter, any vocation, you have to differentiate yourself. There's a big pool of people. There's a lot of talented people. And you have to identify what those things are about yourself that are appealing, that maybe put you out in front, that maybe get you a little further down the funnel where there's fewer people to compete against. Things like, for me, things that I discovered is, I'm pretty good at public speaking. I'm not really nervous in front of crowds. And so I can, usually stand up there and deliver a nice message. I've worked hard at it, but that was a starting point for me where I was comfortable with that. I think the same thing with anybody. They need to find what those comfort areas are that they can really expand on and build on and make themselves differentiated. Another one for me was at some point in my career, I decided that I'm relocatable. And being relocatable is incredibly helpful into differentiation. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that are talented like me, but not a lot of people that are willing to move and take on new roles. And I think that's another one is, are you willing to push out of your comfort zones? So I'm a sales guy. That's what I grew up as a sales guy. But I was very hungry to try marketing, to try training, and give myself those opportunities. And I end up, I mentioned I ended up in Texas. And how did I do that? Well, I decided I would give training a try. I wanted to learn it. Mm-hmm. I had done marketing, and I felt like I needed to build that part of me too, which is training. And the thing about training that's incredible, we'll get into more of training later, but I think training gives you a full view of a corporation. Yeah. You're working with every entity within that corporation, every division, every department, however you want to look at that, all the leadership. And you're sort of Switzerland, and you're really about bringing people together in training. So I think that's a really invaluable experience that I had. And so one of the learnings there is, you never know what that next role might hold. And I think the last thing I would mention is be in the role. A lot of people are always gunning for the top or whatever that goal position is. Be in the role, own your role. And if you own that role, there'll be plenty of more opportunities.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I heard you initially say, hey, lean into your strengths. Right?
That's right.
Some people make the mistake of focusing on where they're not good and being distracted. But, like strength finders, I got them right behind me here, right?
I saw that, yeah.
So lean into that, right? I
Absolutely.
also heard you say kind of a little bit of what you got to put yourself out there. For you, that was being able to go to a different place, but have that ability to put yourself out there, and take on some of these unique roles that might expose you to bigger parts of the organization. If you don't take those that are outside of your comfort zone, you might not get noticed. You might not learn like training did for you. Those are some really good examples. I love it. Now,
thank you.
I'm sure this is one of the things the best people in an organization, the high performers within an organization, keeping those and developing are usually the keys to success, for companies. So tell me, how have you developed high performers? How do you recommend develop high performers?
So I think Steve Jobs said it best. He said, why would you hire somebody and tell them how to do their job if they're talented? That's paraphrasing, not exact quote, but point being is let them run, give them the end point, where you want them to achieve, and let them figure out the in between. And that becomes protocol. If you have somebody that's really talented and you let them establish a path to get to the end point, that's excellent. That's exactly what you want. And those are continued challenges, continued reset of the goal. That's what they want. And I think praise, most people are wired to want admiration. They want praise. And I don't think that, capital punishment works in business. I mean, I think it's really important to redirect when there's a problem, but it's really about, continued encouragement and, development. And, a lot of times when they know that the company goal, they'll jump on board and help you run there. And so I found that I won't say it's a hands-off approach, but I would say it's an approach where it's mutually mutually equal, and we're trying to, help each other as opposed to me feeling like the boss. I'm a leader that I like to get my hands dirty. I like being in the field. I like being in marketing. I like learning about operations. And I watched one of your other leadership lives, and I thought it was really well said that, you don't know what you don't know when you get in my role. So I have strengths, but I did not know regulatory and quality very well. So what do I need to do is dive into that and learn that and walk beside my leader there. And of course, agree on the goal, and they need to come 50% my way, and I need to go 50% their way to create that dialogue. And I think when you establish the dialogue, that's where great things happen. And then retention, I think, there it's challenge, it's owning the strategy, it's getting them, money is a acknowledgement of a job well done. It's an acknowledgement of, our value potentially to you. But it isn't the reason most people work. Most people come daily because they're invested. They believe in the mission. So I think the mission has to be well known by all your team.
Yeah, and I think that ties back to your first point, right? That mission is really that commander's intent, right?
That's right. That's a great way to say it.
You're giving those great performers the agency to achieve the commander's intent. You're not telling them how to do it,
right?
But you have them alongside them to be able to do it, and then celebrating, right? Along the way, the victories along the way. And I think you mentioned failures. Sometimes those don't work out, but sometimes celebrating those failures, are also crucial, because then they can, they don't just stop where they are. They're able to keep pushing on, right? So I love that.
You're exactly right. Yeah, I think they always just want to be challenged. Anybody that's been a good employee with me has always been one that likes to be challenged. They like to know where they stand, and they like to know where they need to go.
One of my former leaders, I think it said, great performers love a great challenge, and they're invigorated by it, not scared of it.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Guys, please put a comment. You have questions that emerge, come up, just put a comment below. We're going to pull those in at the end to find out. So this one actually is a question that's near and dear to my heart, obviously, at FloodGate. Talent is really drives change. And so how do you find and how do you evaluate the right talent? What would you recommend?
So I think throughout anybody's career, you need to be a networker. You never know when you're going to need help or when you need somebody's expertise. And in my career, I was lucky enough to work with a lot of great organizations. And all along the way, I picked up and understood, who might be somebody I want to work with in the future or continue to work with. And so that's been super helpful to kind of identify what top talent looks like, and then, make those connections, because later in life, you end up needing them again, and you might hire them. So, we tend to hire people we know, people we may have experience with, or at least one degree of separation to those talented people. I think training gives you a great understanding of what talent looks like. So I was a North American director of training for Smith & Nephew, and, I was able to see, thousands of people come through training, and of course at national sales meetings and stuff when we're doing role plays, and you could understand like some of the commonalities that equate to top talent. So I think one of the things we do at Sanara MedTech is hire really, really well, and we have retained almost 100% of everybody we would intend to retain. And I think that's a great testament to leadership as well, that our leaders plug into their people. I think companies like FloodGate, we've worked with FloodGate quite a bit. We've had incredible experience. And what I was always so impressed, because we've known each other a long time, you really pioneered the ability to attract candidates and identify candidates. And then you guys do such a great job of screening that by the time my hiring manager or myself is sitting across the table, we're real close. We just have to find the fit. And as I interview, I'm looking for can do, I'm looking for will do, and I'm looking for that little extra that is the fit. And the fit is maybe competition or drive, you might call it. And then you're looking for, that cultural piece where do they kind of orient towards the way our company orients. And I think every company has that, whether you're Stryker, Smith & Nephew, Sanara MedTech, we all have what we identify as, our fit. And I think we want high talent people. We want people that are driven. We're a small company, and so there's an entrepreneurial spirit that you need to have. And I think all those things kind of add up to, what Sanara MedTech quote unquote culture looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It reminds me that cultural fit's crucial. We got trained on hiring for attitude, our team, and he tells the story of Southwest Airlines, you're in Dallas, right? Got to appreciate this, that they had part of their interview process was had them put on loud board shorts, the pilots. You can go put on these shorts, get you more comfortable, right? And you could imagine that, a lot of these pilots, they're buttoned up, they're ex-Air Force guys are like a certain percent, just said, I'm not putting those shorts on. Well, they knew that was their little litmus test culturally.
Yeah.
We're a little silly. We like to have a little fun,
We like to go to lunch. We like to, when we get close to the end of an interview process, we like to go to lunch or have a meal, and kind of take the interview hat off, and understand exactly who the person is. Of course, being HR compliant, but of course, trying to make a connection that is beyond just me in a suit and that person in a suit, and understand is that a good fit? And for both of us, I feel like in an interview, it's an interview both ways. They need to interview us, we're interviewing them. We're not just showing the best parts of ourselves. And so warts and all, we got to decide that we like each other and we want to, start to work together. So, I think that's really important what you just said. I like the example of the board shorts.
Yeah.
We're probably a little bit more jeans and boots down here.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I like it. So, hey guys, if you have comments, I know we've got a couple of them, we'll get to them. But if you have some comments, questions, please just put them below and we'll pull those up at the end. There's a lot of people on listening to this or will be listening to this that aren't leaders today, right? But they want to become a leader. They want to follow in your footsteps, Zach. So what do you recommend? How do they get tapped for that first leadership position?
I think you have to be talking to your current leaders about your aspirations. In all of life, whether you're a salesperson or not, you are selling yourself. And so I think they need to establish that aspiration with their leader. They need to come up with a plan, together, and then they need to work on it. And things might be things that I did. I committed to reading books every month. I've fallen off of that a little bit. I've just gotten a little too busy to fit it in. I know it's a priority thing, but definitely want to get back to that. So you always want to have a read. I think self-help is really important in leadership. And, I've actually got my phone stacked on top of about 10 of the books I've read. And I think, it's to your flavor, but right now I have Traction kind of sitting there waiting for me to be read by Wickman. And, I had a leader that you probably know as well from Smith Nephew who would just astound you about how much he read. And that impressed upon me, again, stealing from a previous good leader, read. Another one I think is you do want to be a good speaker. You don't need to be Tony Robbins or, whoever you consider one of the best public speakers, but you need to be able to convey a point. You need to be able to have emphasis points. You need to have a good projection. I think standing in front of a crowd is nervous for everybody, but figure out your coping mechanisms. So when you stand in front, you can bring that heart rate back down. For me, it was, kind of tying it back to athletics. I was good at that because you're standing in a ring doing what I did with the whole crowd around you. So you kind of get used to it. And I think, that's a really important one. I think other things that people want to do is figure out what gets them down the funnel. What is it that's going to differentiate them? And it's not the same for everybody. For me, I was able to move. My wife was willing to move. Mm-hmm. That's probably what I should have said. It really wasn't about me. It was more about my wife. And I think if you have a family that's apt to help you, that's a really good blessing. And then, you can definitely find opportunities that might not be just in your backyard. And I think that's always helped me a ton. And then I think alignment, right? In a company, there's always alignment, and you want to make sure you're aligned appropriately with the correct leadership tower, if you will.
Yeah.
So that, and that means have lunch with them. And that means, ask about their kids and understand who they are and, be more than just, you're not using them by any stretch. I don't mean that. I mean, invest and actually know the people that, could potentially help you in the future.
Yeah. No, I think some really great suggestions there. I mean, raise your hand. You got to be known that's what you want to do, right? Connect with the people in leadership. Give yourself some of the self-help. I was looking before. I got Traction down here somewhere. There it is. There's your Traction.
I got to get started on that one. That was a gift, and I never started it yet.
So some really, being that, taking advantage of, yourself and taking that is crucial, and taking that ownership. So I like that. Some really tangible suggestions for people. Guys, last thing, just put a comment below. We got a last question for you from us. This one's kind of the fun question here for you. Your favorite superhero, but here's the key. Why?
I was always a Superman fan. I remember I had the pajamas when I was a little kid. So I probably started there. The movies were very timely to my age. They came out that time frame. And he was the biggest and strongest, and he's the fastest, and he could shoot, was it lasers out of his eyes and stuff and flying.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can't get better than actually being able to fly. He didn't buy his suit. He didn't build his suit. He's not the richest. He's not Iron Man or Batman, but he just had it, and so I have to go Superman. And then, I think he was always in favor of, helping people.
Yeah, no, that was a core. He would, it always change when someone was in trouble, and
that's right.
I do have a random Superman story that was pretty funny. I was with my kids and we were in a museum or something. They had a telephone booth with, Superman coming out, and they go, "What is that box? Is that what makes Superman super?" They'd never seen a telephone.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I had the lunch box, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good. Well, hey, I'm going to turn over now to some questions from the from the FloodGate family here. So
okay.
We'll blend some of the questions we have. All right. So I get a kind of a comment, I guess from Alan Prell, 200 application positions, all sounds good and repetitive. Is it more cultural fit, not skills? I guess that's the question. How do you, if you see them all, how do you, where do you rank cultural fit to skills? I'm kind of.
So to repeat the question, if I had a stack of resumes, what am I looking for basically?
I think so. I think that's what he's doing.
What's more important? I think skills get you in the door. Your experience gets you in the door. You see that on the resume. You see the accomplishments and the path that they took, and but what doesn't come across a lot of times is how did they persevere? And that's at the core of what we try to do at Sanara. We're not the biggest, so there's a lot of perseverance needed, a lot of adaptability needed. So I'm looking for that in the resume. That's probably shown through those experiences, but it isn't obvious until they start to talk about it and give me the context of why they made a change or how they got promoted, that type of thing. And those things, those stories that sit behind the resume, that's what I need to hear. And that conveyance of the story and how they felt about it, and that energy they had. That energy is that cultural fit. I feel like you kind of start to see this person's on fire and they're ready to rock, and that's what Sanara would want. And I think most companies would want that. I think there's very few that would say, tone down your energy or reduce the fire. They'd say, hey, we want that person, particularly in sales and almost every other position, I would say too. I think that's an important thing, is that passion, really love what you do, be excited about the opportunity, that type of thing. And there's all the coaching of how you sit and, the verbal and nonverbal skills that, I observe. And so those are things that come across in an interview. So for sure, the face-to-face is all those little readouts that, kind of, most of them probably are almost unspoken. They're kind of the way you act.
Well, a couple of facts there is like I think it's greater than 80% of your communication is nonverbal.
That's right.
People remember. And another thing that I always think of when you were saying that is, hey, you achieved this, but the crucial element is how you did it, right? And I'll talk to candidates all the time, like, hey guys, stories sell, facts tell, right?
Man, that is exactly right. When you look at a resume, today there's every year it kind of changes what the guidelines are for how to put a resume together. And I would say, if it was me, and I of course do some hiring, I don't do as much as our salespeople or our marketing people, but today, but I tend to be on the back end of that hiring process now. But in order to wade through those resumes, as I came up through the business, what you're looking for are those things that differentiate people. There's everybody's had jobs at large companies these days. What I'd like to see is, have they pushed to be the best in whatever position they were in? Did they make advancement? Did they encounter change? Maybe they lost their job. Well, how did they respond in that? That's what I care about. I want to hear that you're resilient, adaptable, and that you're going after it in some way. You're really pursuing. And I love to even go back to the collegiate times and early life and kind of talk some about that, because a lot of the way people was established long ago. So if you're really competitive, if you grew up in a military family, sometimes those things are really helpful. They have a way to do things that are extremely organized, and they think about it very strategically, and they've learned that, right? That's something that they grew up in a household where that was impressed upon them on a daily. Make your bed every morning, that kind of thing. So those things, that's what you get when you sit across, and you want to say some sort of reflection of that in the resume.
Yeah.
Because that stuff talks. Everybody moves around, everybody does stuff, but what we want to see is like, where did you go with it?
Yeah, that's good. I think great examples. I mean, I got a question from our chairman one time that asked me what leadership positions I held in high school, right? And this was well into my career,
Yeah.
so it's very much your point.
Yeah, there's definitely people who change, but most people tend to at least kind of create who they are early.
Yeah.
There's certainly adaptability and change over time, and people get impacted different ways. But certainly, you don't change a ton in the way you're built.
Exactly. So as an organization gets larger, there's a tendency for institution to dampen the inspiration. I think that's well said, Renee. How do you keep this from happening?
Yeah, I think it's got to be pushed down from the top. It's got to come up from the bottom, right? Like everybody has to buy into that culture and what it is, and it's got to be defined. You had one earlier about wearing some board shorts, and I think ours. You might have been at our. If you went to our national sales meeting, you'd see it's Fort Worth. We literally took a page out of Yellowstone. We wore our cowboy hats, we had our cowboy boots, and I'm the one leading the charge on that, and that's who we are. It kind of gives you a sense that we admire hard work. We admire that pioneer spirit. We want to move westward in terms of our sales, but also in terms of like a manifest destiny attitude. Go get it. Go take what's yours in a sales sense and in a marketing sense and in the way we operate and do our quality and regulatory. So those things are all about ownership, and we wanted to portray that. That's what we as a company decided. And so I think it's a continual reminder to the staff and to your team who we are. And I think no matter how big you are, I thought, if Smith and Nephew's watching, I'll probably love this interview, but I think they did a good job of that. There was a culture there, and it was owned by everybody, and everybody knew what that was. And I think it just has to be continually reminded. And you don't want to create so much process that gets in the way of getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having, meetings are the enemy of that sometimes. You end up having meetings about meetings, so you're ready for the meeting. And it's like, well, that wasn't really the point. The point was production. You got to think about what's productive and not get everything done in meetings. I think meetings can really create problems with that culture. You end up kind of just never being a productive group. And
right.
So that's something, like I saw Elon Musk has a directive to his team that says, if you're in a meeting and it's not productive, you need to leave. Otherwise it's offensive. And I thought, man, that's so true. Like, we create cultures where we require everybody to buy in. And maybe that's the enemy, right? Because not everybody's ever going to buy in. So sometimes you just got to do things. And that activity creates a culture, that activity of saying, hey, we're going to be progressive and we're going to get things done and we're going to be nimble. That needs to be part of that culture for us. And we try to continue that with the way we look at meetings as well. I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah, no, I love that quote. We're reading No Rules, our book club, from Netflix, and that culture of kind of trying to keep those regulations, those requirements. And, a lot of times, it's about starts with that talent density, having the right people on the bus, having that right message, and realizing that, I guess one of my favorite superheroes, Spider-Man, with great responsibility, great power comes great responsibility, right? So if they have the choice to do it, they make it, now they own it, right? So I thought
absolutely. And I think you have to have your minimums, no matter what job you're in. Like, what's your minimum that you accept? Because whatever that is, that's what you've said is okay. So I think you have to have minimums that are pretty high, So, for us, it's, quality and regulatory and all that stuff has to be our leading edge. I heard that in one of your other talks that you had. Has to be the leading edge. Has to be where you start. Because if that's really a high expectation there, and then you do so in sales and you do so in marketing, that minimum is really high. So we expect 5 calls a day, out to customers in sales. We expect, phone calls to initiate business and to follow up on business each day. So it's those metrics that you measure that get done. And likewise for marketing, what are they producing every month? And those minimums are well known. And that creates the culture, and it kind of reduces the need for so much reminding or additional meetings.
Yeah, no, I love it. Zach, we had a couple questions I didn't get to, so I apologize, guys, but we are at the time. We'll try to respond offline here to you guys and those questions and needs, but thank you so much, Zach.
You're welcome.
Thanks for really being a part of this. I know there's a lot of people that have and will listen to this. So we'll take some incredible arrows to put in their quiver to help their career and become a better leader. So thank you.
Good luck to everybody. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.